Delish, that's a good review.
Yeah. She can't hear you.
Who can't hear me?
Young lady with the glasses.
Well, I think we have some people in the room that will help us with the sound as needed if it's a little low. I just want to say how amazing y'all look.
Yeah.
I'm so happy. I'm just so happy and honored to be here. This is actually my first time at this event, and I'm incredibly excited. And it's so good to see all of you. The room is full. Most of you have gotten your dinner, which I'm really pleased. And I apologize, we started just a little bit late, but I wanted to make sure that we got everybody in to get a meal before we started. Our official program is going to begin shortly, but I thought if y'all would indulge us, I wanted to roll some film. Can you hear me better now? Okay. We're going to roll some film about the history of Chase Brexton. And y'all know I'm new at Chase Brexton. And how many of you seen that historical mural on the second floor of Chase Brexton? Okay. So I made my decision to work at Chase Brexton standing in front of that mural, crying, frankly. I was so moved and touched by it. I had a lot of amazing interviews, not taking anything away from that. Some of the people in this room interviewed me. But it was that mural that really got me, and I knew it was something I wanted to be a part of. So, as we settle in for the evening, if you would join us in watching this film, we're going to roll for you about our history. while this is still rolling, I'm just going to let you in on something that you might have figured out. The narration to this video is missing. Hopefully some of you can see what was on the screen. News archive, item after item, article after article about the deep, rich history of this organization. I know some of you in this room, some of our founders are sitting with us tonight. Hopefully you saw yourself. I see you out there. It was very important for us to roll this film because I want you to know that at Chase Brexton we know that without you, without the earliest origins of this organization, without this LGBTQ community, there would be no Chase Brexton. And it's grown to be a very big organization. We are very deeply proud of our history, and I really wanted you to get a look at it. Technology sometimes is not our friend, so we miss some of the narration, but I do want you to know that our marketing department, which is full of a bunch of creative geniuses, let me tell you.
Marketing.
That's right. They went through many, many archives to put this video together. We can get the link out to anybody who wants to look at it. We're so very proud of our history. It's pretty hard to put 40 years in 8 minutes, but they did it, and I wanted to share it with you. So thank you for indulging me with that. So I think I mentioned before, and some of you know that I'm new in my position as the director of the LGBT Health Resource Center. And you know, when you're new at a job, boy, it's just all learning all the time. I joke with people that I've been drinking from the fire hose, but not drowning in it, which is good. But it was so obvious, even from the first few moments that I spent in the Resource Center, that the very first program that ever came out of the Resource Center, which was about LGBT elders, the Sage Cap program, and all of the care that we do for our elders is the cornerstone of everything we do. And so it's exciting to me to be here for the first time. Honoring elders with love, respect, and dignity is essential in our community. They are, or I should say, you are, maybe we are, because I'm about to be an elder myself. You're why we're here tonight, and we celebrate with you tonight. Before we get started, as in every event, I have people I need to thank. So first, I just want to talk about my team for a minute. I know you know them. Those of you that are here, of course I have to ask Doris to stand in. She has not sat down once tonight. Doris, Monty, y'all stand up and just accept my deep gratitude. I'm so grateful for you every day. I learn so much from you every day, and I know all of our patients and stakeholders appreciate everything you do as well. Also give a shout out to Dan, who's here from marketing. Dan and his team. Where's Alexa? Alexa's here somewhere too. Alexa. Awesome. They're all stepping in to make sure that we have Facebook Live going, taking pictures for us. And speaking of social media, man, Lily Tomlin is tweeting about our event. So is Wilson Cruz. Right? Come on. So in case you are one of those people who does social media all the time, the hashtag is hashtag LGBT Elders Day. It is happening in Los Angeles, in Palm Springs, different places around the country. So feel free to post your cool selfies with our hashtag, or you can use the step and repeat if you like as well. Volunteers. We have volunteers here. I see y'all back there. We could not do what we do without you. You make everything work for us. I appreciate that. And also, I want to give a big shout out to our sponsors and our donors. Your support really makes this work possible. So that delicious meal you're all enjoying was paid for by PayPal.
PayPal!
Yeah. And lovingly prepared and served by the amazing Breaking Bread team. What do y'all think about the venue? So big shout out to Center Stage. They donated this venue. Wow. And it's kind of fun that that one of the managers of Center Stage is in the back, Alec. He's posing as our bartender tonight. So this time together as well. I see Pillow in the back, who helped us with every technical thing all day as well. Thank you all so much. And also soon you will be entertained and inspired by the amazing new wave singers. Thank you all for your generosity. Now, for the rest of our sponsors, as I call your name or your organization, please stand and remain standing so we can recognize you all at once. Betsy Cerullo and Susan Murray, OWL, Heartlands, Maryland Volunteer Lawyers Service, Dudley Physical Therapy, HANA, AARP Maryland, the Pride Center of Maryland, Movable Feast, the Maryland LGBT Chamber of Commerce, Rosenberg, Martin, and Greenberg, and also we have a memorial donation in loving memory of Leslie L. Smith IV, and we also have support from Brown Advisory tonight. Y'all stand up. The money matters, y'all. We couldn't do it without it. So, keep giving. I will come back and ask again. We also owe an enormous debt of gratitude to everyone who worked to create this event, not only this year, but over the years, especially including this year's committee. Y'all please stand as I call you out. And actually, our staff has a little something for you. I'm not sure if they're ready to give it to you now, but we'll get it to you before the evening is over. Breezy Bishop, Lewis Hughes Jr., Chris Camp, y'all stand up, Rick Roberts, Carlton Smith, Chris Strickland, and Ralph Welch. Thank you so much. And perhaps most especially, and I really hope he's watching tonight on Facebook Live, I want to give a shout out to Nate Sweeney, our previous director. I know y'all loved him because the first 50 people I met in Baltimore were like, "Are you the new Nate? We love Nate." Yeah. Nate, thank you. This was your vision. Thank you for making it happen, and know we will keep moving it forward.
Yeah.
With deep pride and an incredible well of gratitude. I know I told y'all this face to face, but I appreciate y'all so much. I'm going to turn it over and welcome the New Wave Singers to the stage, directed by Tim Gillum. And I know your performance is really going to set the tone for what we're going to do here tonight.
Yeah, New Wave.
Thank you so much. We are honored. It is a privilege to sing for such a wonderful organization. I told Sam, I'm new to the organization too, so we're going to get together and have drinks about starting off with groups. We're going to perform some songs tonight from our upcoming concert. It's honoring the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall Rebellion. And we have left, of course, we've left flyers for you outside, so we would love to have you join us. I have found some of the music that was on the jukebox, which was all they had back in the day. The music that was on the jukebox the night of the Stonewall riots, and we'll be doing some of those songs, including this song, which you probably know by the Beatles, one of my favorite of theirs, called Yesterday.
Love was such an easy game to play. Now I need a place to hide away. Oh, I believe in yesterday. I believe in yesterday.
Yeah.
So today, Thursday, May 16, 2019, we declare to be the 4th Annual National Honor Our LGBT Elders Day. We have claimed this day so that we, no matter what our age, can look to those who came before us and pause to honor their lives. Their trials, their sacrifices, their resilience, and their dignity, and the victories they won for us all. Today, the community comes together in gratitude. Now, the next item in my speech is for us to receive the official proclamation from our new mayor. And I know y'all see Jabari Wild sitting here, amazing LGBT liaison. What a rock star you are. I'm so enjoying watching what you're doing in the city. And you might also know there's a little bit of a technology problem at City Hall. So we don't have the proclamation today, but I appreciate you getting that proclamation from us. And for all of you who visit us in the Resource Center, you will see it framed, hanging in our Resource Center very soon. And we all appreciate your work, Jabari, very much. How many of you have visited the Elder Pride tent that we host at the Pride Festival every year? So many of you. You know, I've heard a lot about that Elder Pride tent, and I can't wait to be in there with y'all. Hopefully we're going to have this same film crew that you see here tonight out there with us capturing some footage about what that space means to you. And you know, Monty and I have been talking a lot about the future of our work with elders. Where do we go from the Sage Cap program that we've done? And now, you know, Sage is now working on housing. They're doing other things. The grant that funded that program has run out. What's the future look like for our elder work? And I started thinking, we need a brand. We need something that absolutely, in a split second, an image that tells you what the work means. And, you know, I just want to remind you about that logo for Elder Pride and those pins that are on your table. You're going to see over the next probably 6 to 8 months a shift of all of our LGBT elder work under this one brand. That tent is amazing. It works. It will work for the brand. I know you'll be inspired by what we're going to do, and we can't wait to learn from you what you think we should do. So consider this a soft launch. Probably not that soft launch, it's not good enough. We wanted to tell you first. You're the reason we do this work, and we want you to see a glimpse of the future. So watch for more from Elder Pride. And also, you know, as the executive director of the LGBT Health Resource Center, I would be remiss if I did not ask you for your continued support for our work, including your time and your talent and your treasure. And in the spirit of your treasure, I would just like to point out a really cool device that I have sitting up here in the middle of this amazing head table. It's called a dip jar. Anybody ever used a dip jar before? So it means if you have a credit card, oh, Dan's going to do show and tell. If you have a credit card with you and you want to, I really wish that was on camera. Trust me on Facebook, it was fun. If you want to support the work that we do tonight, we made it really easy for you. You can just walk up to one of those jars and put a credit card in there. One's got a $50 increment on it, and one has a $100 increment on it. I assure you I will probably be the first to swipe that thing. This work means a lot to us, And, oh, there's a $30 one on the registration table. We really need your support, and I know that if you can give, you will, and I appreciate you for that. So, also get the cool honor of introducing our host for the evening. So, how many of you in here personally know and have watched the entire career of Senator Mary Washington? So, your chief of staff is serious business, sent us a very long and detailed bio for you, which I'm supposed to read. But I'm going to skip some of it. But something I can't skip is to say that you made history becoming the first openly LGBT African-American elected official in Maryland, and only the second such state legislator in the country. You were also the first in the Senate. It's a big deal. Blaze new trails, and then there are other people that have to clear the trees. You are such a leader. I appreciate you. So I'm new here, and I didn't know all the amazing history and personal stories that y'all know, but Betsy Cerullo invited me to an event, probably your last fundraiser before you started the session, and I didn't really know what to expect, but I like a fundraiser, I like politics. I went over there, and man, I heard a speech, and I mean a speech. I've heard so many political speeches. I spent 7 years in Washington. Rarely have I heard one that was about hope and resilience, and it made me feel so proud to call Baltimore my home. Please welcome our Senator, Mary Washington.
We'll have a disco ball. I mean, dinner will be at 4, but there will be a disco bar. And thank you all so much for making, I think that might be what happens. We're going to still continue to be our loving, joyful, celebratory selves all through it. And I'm really honored to be here. It's also my first time ever being an MC. I'm excited about that. I will warn you in advance that I'm really bad at joke telling, but I smile and I think I can keep things going. So that's why I'm here today, to really kind of kick this off and talk about the fact that these rights and acceptances that we now have as an LGBTQ, all the other love letters that surround our community have today didn't occur overnight or in a vacuum. Right? They didn't happen by accident. It wasn't just the natural flow. It was because of the lives that all of us and the people before us lived. The fact, so I was born in 1962. And yes, thank you. There we go. And I remember, you're going to hear lots of stories, but I want to tell you just about a really quick one for me. I grew up in Philadelphia. And I remember watching TV, and there was this school, a Philadelphia High School for Girls. And I remember on TV, I was looking at these two women, and they were the first 2 women, so they were the class of, I believe it was probably at that point, 1976, who wanted to go to the prom together. 2 women. And I'm in 8th grade, and I'm watching it, and my family, of course, people are shaking their heads, and everybody, and I'm shaking my head, and in me, I'm like, that's me. You know, I'm at, St. Ignatius Catholic School, but it was that. And what we have done over these 40 years through places like Chase Brexton, through just showing up at work every day, through singing, is being visible and being a model and a role model and giving hope. When we don't even know we're doing that, we're just living our lives. So each community living our lives has a tradition of storytelling. And the elders sit around the fire, on the bar, or any other places, and we hear our stories. And we hear these stories every day, and we tell them to our friends, we tell them to our partners, to our children, to our grandchildren, and stories are everywhere. But stories are the ways that we change the world. They are one of the transformative powers that we have of a story. No one can stop your story, and no one can tell your story. And so you will be hearing stories, transformative stories, and it's part of the strength that brings us together. So we're going to honor our LGBT Elders Day and have this opportunity to listen to older adults. We're going to hear from members of the community as they tell their stories about one elder who made a difference in their life. But the truth is that each of them could probably talk about hundreds, thousands of people, and I'm sure each one of you can. And we all sit here surrounded again by this love. So tonight's story is about deep, personal, and meaningful impact that these individuals, elders, have had, but it's also a chance for us to remember our mentors and our individual guides, the people who walked us through, those people who you watched quietly. I remembered I was very worried that I wouldn't look very good in a white belt and a flannel shirt. So fortunately, things changed over time. It was a little more ability to be a little more flexible in how we presented ourselves. But still, those women were my role models, those strong women, who were themselves. That was the path that gave all of us the ability to be our own people. So in the spirit of sharing our histories to these stories from many perspectives, we have opened a wild card. So we're going to have your formal presentations, but there's also going to be a wild card storytelling spot to give to someone in the audience who feels called. So whether you're in the Quaker tradition or whatever, however you feel called to be able to stand up and speak about someone and tell their story, we're going to provide space for that. So after a few speakers, we're going to draw a name from a bowl. So if you don't know it or not, you volunteered. So if you wrote your name in there, you might be called up to be the wild card. But I'd like you to, frankly, join me in welcoming our first storyteller. And he's a good friend, a constituent, a neighbor. He himself is someone who does so much good work in our community and is very quiet and humble about it, but is so strong and diligent in making sure that we always have a seat at the table, whether we know it or not. And that's Frank McNeil. And you can clap just on the name. He's a Naval Academy graduate, Marine Corps veteran, a community development banking consultant with PNC Bank, one of our sponsors. He has served on the board of Chase Brexton and as their event chair for several years. As I said, very active in the community. Frank has served in leadership roles with several Baltimore-based nonprofit organizations. Frank was awarded Chase Brexton's Spirit Award in 2008, and it was their inaugural Legacy Award last fall. So tonight he will be honoring his dear friend, T. Calvin Calstrom.
You know you've arrived when you get Mary Washington to introduce you. Thank you, Mary. For quite some time now, I have come to accept that all things happen for a reason. And although I didn't support his choice of political friend, Steve Harvey said something very profound recently. he said that when bad things happen in their lives, he taught his children to apply a very simple principle. Instead of asking, why did this happen to me? He taught them to ask, why is this happening for me? What am I supposed to learn from this bad thing that is happening for me? Or what am I supposed to learn from this good thing that is happening for me? So I hadn't fully come to that understanding yet when I met my honoree, Cal Strawhan, back in 1991. But it was something that I was about to learn. As you heard in the introduction, I'm a former Marine officer. And in 1991, my partner was an architect whose name was Chris Duncan. We discovered that he was HIV positive. And it was also about this time that I was asked to join Chase Brexton's board. So Chris and I had been together 3 years at that point, and I decided I needed to leave the Corps so that we could do whatever we could to help him fight the virus. Cal's long-term partner was Bill Beagle, an interior designer at the Chambers firm. Bill and Chris enjoyed getting to know each other. So while they were working on a residential project. So Bill and Cal were kind enough to invite us to their cabin in the woods in West Virginia. Okay, now get those dirty thoughts out of your mind. It was a very platonic weekend. But since I was leaving the Corps, I networked with everybody possible to let them know that I was getting out of the Marine Corps. So that weekend was no exception. And Cal worked at the Baltimore branch of the Federal Reserve Bank. And after our visit to the cabin that weekend, I made sure that he had my resume on his desk by Monday afternoon or Tuesday at the latest. Now, I'm certain that without Cal's intervention, that I wouldn't have been able to easily transition from the Marine Corps to banking. I made a vow when I left the Corps, I think some of you were at the chamber event, that I would never work for another organization where I could lose my job because of my orientation. But as I said, it was the early 90s, and the financial industry wasn't exactly marching at the head of pride parades, but they were certainly more accepting than the Marine Corps. Nonetheless, Cal set the example for me so that I could learn how to navigate the obstacles that he encountered when he was a young banker. He was a sounding board for any question that I had when it came to banking or the Fed. In short, he was invaluable when it came to learning about banking or regarding career decisions. He ultimately worked there for 35 years, during a time when you kept your orientation very private. You were cautious about being seen out at a restaurant for dinner with 3 other men. And you changed your pronouns when you talked about your weekend plans, your past weekend plans. In addition to the Fed, unfortunately, we had something else in common. We both had partners who were ill. His partner, Bill, had multiple sclerosis. And as I said earlier, Chris was HIV positive. Bill's MS slowly but surely progressed to a point where Cal would have to eventually retire early so that he could take care of him. If you ask him to this day, he would say that his greatest accomplishment was learning how to handle all the medical, physical, and emotional needs that Bill required, and completely caring for him for the latter portion of the 25 years that they were together until his last breath. Now, although my partner, Chris, died before Bill, Cal once again set the example of what a caring, supportive partner should be in this new world of same-sex couples being able to live openly together. After Chris died, I met my partner of 24 years, and now husband of soon-to-be 6 years. And that's right. One of the first people that I introduced him to was Cal. That night, after spending just a few minutes with Paul, Cal promptly pulled me aside to say, "He's a keeper." Since then, Cal has accompanied us on trips to San Francisco, London. We've driven around Italy, Switzerland, traversed the Atlantic aboard the Queen Mary II, just to name a few. There are very few Broadway or other live theater performances in Baltimore, Washington metropolitan area that Cal hasn't seen. In fact, his playbill collection is so large that he's looking for a library or a school that will take them all collectively. He's always the first to let us know when we have to see this or that production, and he makes sure that we hear the right soundtrack from the latest or greatest musical. Cal is a living embodiment of a motto from Cher's mother. Cher's mother said, "Age ain't nothing but a number. If you don't bother it, it won't bother you." He continues to set the pace for my friends and me, showing us how to enjoy retirement, how to reinvent ourselves after retirement, how to continue to be involved in the community, and how to make sure that we respond to what is happening for us, not to us. Just a couple of Cal-isms that I got to share with you before I sit down, because they're too important not to. If he forgets a name or can't remember a title, he says, "Oh, Frank, don't get old." When he has that occasional ailment or medical procedure, he reminds us that getting old ain't for sissies. Lastly, if someone says something that could be considered innuendo, such as, "I've never seen one that big before," his first response is, "Well, that's what Mary said to me at the picnic." With that, please join me in saluting my remarkable LGBT elder and champion, Cal Strahan.
What a wonderful story, and then just again reminding us of all the little lifts that none of us have gotten here on our own, and these opportunities in our career that people just, you had a lunch with somebody, or they were open to you and showing you the way. That's just great to see that. We have a man, I was going to say a young man because I've known him for a long time. Our next storyteller is going to be Jabari Lyles. He's had many years, over 15 years of experience working in various positions that emphasizes passion for education and social justice. I knew him for a while, but I think I really got to know him as a worker for our community when he was a executive director for Glissa in Maryland, and really working to engage our young people, so that's the other end of our spectrum. And doing that work, and he's also worked at Free State Justice, the LGBTQ legal organization. He's been an outreach specialist. He's presented on a number of LGBTQ issues locally and statewide. He's a Maryland native. This is what Baltimore is, not only to our state, but to our country, as well as our city. Please welcome our next storyteller, Jabari Lyles, who's going to be honoring Kay Allen.
A little taller. So thanks so much for having me here. My name is Jabari. My name is not Kiwi. So Kiwi had to step out, so I'm filling in for them. So I didn't have anything prepared. However, the person that Kiwi was going to honor is actually someone, if I had the opportunity to speak tonight, I would have honored this person. So when you heard Senator Washington say that I have 15 years of experience, 15 years ago is when this person came into my life. So this is the person who really started me on the path to LGBT activism in Baltimore. Her name is Kay Halley. So 15 years ago, I was a overstretched, talkative sophomore in high school. some things don't change. And I knew that I was going to be okay talking because something that Kay said is, Jabari, I knew you're going to be a teacher because you're really nice, you're really smart, and you love to hear yourself talk. So, thank you, Kay. So I was 15 years old, and I heard a morning announcement for anyone who wanted to get involved with LGBT youth activism in schools. And I thought, well, I have enough to do, but that sounds great too. Let's do it. So they said, show up at Roland Park Country School this day, 7 p.m. So I showed up, and in that room was Kay with a couple of other private school kids. I was the only public school kid. And she walked up to me and she said, wow, you're tall. And I said, thanks. And she said, what's your name? And I said, I'm Jabari. She said, well, we're so glad to have you here, Jabari. Help yourself to, and something she always had was hummus and clementines. So I said, okay. So I sat down, I had the hummus, I had the clementines, and we started to talk about what the organization was about. GLSEN. Well, at that time, it was called the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network, and it was all about making sure that schools are safe and affirming for LGBT students. I come from a long history of teachers, so I knew that I wanted to be a teacher at some point growing up, and so this sort of made sense for me. So that was maybe some Tuesday night at Roland Park Country School, and I kept coming back to those meetings. And I kept seeing Kay, and she said, thank you so much. And she really just started to cultivate me as a young leader. Something that GLSEN does every year is called the Youth Summit, and it's this cool meeting of like maybe over 100 LGBT kids from the whole area. And at that time, I was the youngest person of our team, and so we were using Yahoo GeoCities, some of you remember that, for registration. And they said, well, Jabari, you're the youngest person, go ahead and run the registration. So I ran the registration, I showed up, and we had a keynote speaker. We were at Tufts University, and our keynote speaker was late. So we were waiting to start the show, and Kay said, Jabari, just jump up there and start talking. And I'm 15, my peers in the audience, I was like, okay. So I jumped up and I said, hey everybody, I'm Jabari, welcome to the Youth Summit, and I just gave a random speech. I don't know what I said. Little did I know, that was the beginning of Kay always encouraging me to speak, always encouraging me to share my voice. That began, 10-year relationship of Kay and I. We were known as this interesting team because she was this short, little Jewish woman, and I'm, well, me. She would call me her big man, and we would go around to schools and urge them to support their LGBT students. And back in 2009, that work was not easy. A lot of folks think that maybe in the late 2000s, our society became, better about these issues. But even in 2008, it was a struggle being invited into classrooms to talk about queer issues with kids. My next good memory of Kay is when we were presenting to principals and guidance counselors. And at this time, I was probably about 19. I had just got kicked out of my first year of college. And I knew this work so well, but I felt really intimidated. I was young, I was black, and there were all these professionals in the room, and Kay looked at me and she said, you know this. Get up there and talk about what you know. So this was another really important moment of when Kay just said, get up there and talk. So I remember getting in there and talk, and I was all right. I kind of, stuttered a little bit, but it happened and it worked. And from that day on, I just practiced my facilitation and training skills, and Kay was always there to help me. Through our work, we had a relationship with the school, and this school offered me a teaching position. And so my work from GLSEN sort of backed off, but we were changing a lot. We had just heard that Kay was diagnosed with lung cancer. And she always had this cough, and we never knew what it was. And one of my final memories of Kay was sitting in her living room with hummus and clementines, and she's coughing, and she's trying to, plan, what our next stop, thing is. And even through then, you could tell that the fire and the commitment to do this work for young people had never burnt out with her. And a couple of weeks later is when I found out that Kay had passed away. And I want to lift Kay up and honor her as much as I can, because it really is because of her that I have the confidence and the intelligence and the community that I rely on and use every day. And throughout the years, I've met her family. They've been great to me. And Kay really did teach me what it means to invest in younger leadership. So it's so interesting because the person who was supposed to speak tonight, we had a similar story where I found them in high school on a morning announcement, and they came to the first meeting, and I was the one who said, "Hey, Kiwi, how are you? Keep coming to the meetings." So Kay's legacy lives on. She continues to teach us what it means to invest in new leadership, youth leadership, but also as an older freedom fighter, she's just really given me, the know-how, the courage to do anything that we wanted to do. So Kiwi was going to honor Kay. It's so interesting that I was here to be able to step in for them. Kay is no longer with us, but I carry her in everything that I do, all the recent victories that we have for LGBT young people, the work that we do in schools, the fact that we're able to expand all over the state was Kay's vision. And so if you all will join me in just a quick moment of silence for Kay to honor her. Thanks, Kay. Love you.
You have to have a leave no trace rule. Let's put on the environmentalist. Okay, so again, our next storyteller is Betsy Cirillo. And Betsy is a good friend, a fantastic person, a trailblazer herself, as being one of the co-founders of the founder of the CEO AdNet AccountNet Incorporated. But what I started to say is that she was the co-founder and past president of the Maryland LGBT Chamber of Commerce. And again, if any of you don't know about that organization, they are a sponsor, but join. If you're a business person, a consultant, anyone that's interested in that, it's a fantastic organization, and I'm so happy that they're a sponsor tonight. Betsy, recent awards include the BBJ 2018 Leader in Diversity, the 2018 Top 100 MBE in Mid-Atlantic Region, the 2017 Daily Record 25 Most Admired CEOs in Maryland, BBJ Top 500, Top 50 Past Women-Owned Businesses, and she has served on the board of directors for Chase Brexton, was a past president for the National Association of Women Business Owners, and past vice chairwoman for the Maryland Better Business Bureau. Betsy will be honoring Cheryl Spector. I haven't looked at her picture in a while. She was articulate, highly educated, bilingual, and passionately committed to the LGBT community. My dear soul sister, Cheryl Spector, was the most loving, inappropriate person I knew. And I loved her. She left us way too soon in 2007 from acute myeloid leukemia. It was a fast-acting illness, being diagnosed in June and taking her in September. Two of my friends here tonight, Shuri Asbel and Dave Adagali, were part of her caretaking team that summer, so thank you for being here. I
first met Cheryl in the summer of 1984 after my college education. So that's how you all am. She was dancing on top of a booth at a Sunday night drag show at the other side of DC.
Of course she was.
Of course. I was mesmerized by her happy energy and glowing personality. Cheryl and I were both from New Jersey, and we immediately hit it off. We began dating in 1985 and maintained a long-distance relationship since I had to move back to Jersey for a short time. We were together for a year and a half, and it was an exciting time as I experienced DC, Baltimore, and New York pride, and started to come into my own as a lesbian. Cheryl came from a Jewish family with an incredible humor, and she could let her joke roll off her tongue like magic. During that time, Cheryl's brother Stan contracted AIDS and eventually took his life in 1985. Stan was about to graduate from medical school. His loss left a huge hole in her life as she watched more friends succumb to the disease. Cheryl's activism was born. She volunteered for the March on Washington in 1987 and 1993, and was the Grand Marshal for Gay Pride in 1998. She co-founded the group Oppression Under Target. In the late 80s, it was a group that distributed safe-sex kits to women, and Cheryl always had her dental dams on hand, passing them out wherever we went. She felt that the more kits she passed out, maybe she could save one more life. Cheryl worked for ACT UP to prevent the spread of HIV through infected drug needles. She worked for Queer Nation, the Lesbian Avengers, Radical Fairies, Arlington Gay and Lesbian Alliance, Capital Pride, and the Mountain Project, to name a few. And she was a popular drag king when she wasn't out changing the world. She would call me to tell me the name of the new group she joined, knowing my reaction would be, what in the heck is a lesbian avenger? I was more conservative for 20 years ago. Her response would be, lighten up, honey, and try it. Cheryl served on the board of the Rainbow History Project and chronicled years of DC LGBT history with her video camera. It was attached to her like an appendage. Cheryl wanted to capture every memory and always had pictures to share of those moments. Our core group of friends, consisting of about 8 women, were our extended family celebrating special occasions, experiencing emailing for the first time, and our camping escapades where Cheryl would proudly take off her shirt to show her leather harness. And she would pull from her bag her leather Barbie and Ken. Who knew? Never a dull moment Cheryl was around. Right, Glenda?
Absolutely.
If anyone ever followed the DC radio station of WJFK, the Don and Mike show, a popular guest was Cheryl the Big Dyke. Yes, that was our friend Cheryl Becker. She challenged these guys to be respectful if you were going to poke at the gay community. Over the airwaves, she would tell jokes as only Cheryl could. And these guys loved her, and they grew to embrace the gay community because Cheryl was the bridge. In preparing my presentation for tonight, I found old podcasts of the Don and Mike show. I haven't heard Cheryl's voice in almost 12 years, and was taken right back to those great memories. Cheryl found her job with the CIA in 2000 through this show because an executive loved hearing her stories that when Cheryl said she was unemployed, a guy called Don and Mike to find her. At the CIA, this incredible in-your-face activist was loved and cherished. Over the years, Cheryl put on a lot of weight, and she became well endowed on the top, unlike myself. She affectionately named her breasts Thelma and Louise. Whenever I said she was inappropriate. Cheryl always had bags with her, too. So, we would be at parties, and Cheryl would get an audience around her, and she would take out a can. And she'd put it between her boobs.
Yep.
That is what would emerge. As friends would howl with laughter, Cheryl would beam with joy like a bad little kid. She had no inhibitions, and I loved her for that. But don't worry, I won't be crushing cans tonight, or any night for that matter. I couldn't even put a dent in it. Cheryl was an in-your-face, endearing activist who had a personal mission of making sure people accepted and appreciated the gay community. The more unaccepting the person was, the more determined she was to change that person's mind. She was so funny with the gift of making you laugh to tears and wet your pants, that even the straightest person in the world would laugh. She'd have a field day with Donald Trump. Yep. And I know she is working her magic from above. She's going to get his ass. She never missed an event and often attended several events in one evening to make sure she showed her support and have her voice heard. She obviously had a lot of life to live in a short time. I asked her so many times, "Why do you do so much?" And her responses were the same: "Because I have to stop what's happening to our community." And she would ask me why I wasn't out there, and my reasons were the same: because I was afraid of coming out for fear that it would hurt my company and my career. She always accepted my reason begrudgingly, but she would lovingly encourage me that it would be okay if I came out professionally. Fast forward to the summer of 2007, our last summer together, when she was in the hospital. Her room was a revolving door of visitors from the beginning of her stay. I would spend a few hours a day there, and we talked and laughed endlessly, recalling memories and listening to her jokes. And much like you, Frank, she loved Susan and said, "You got a good one, don't F it up." A cadre of visitors spanned every initial in the LGBTQ+ community. At that time, reintroducing queer was more popular, and as conversations took place, she would look over at me knowing I dreaded the word, because being called queer for me back then had me ready to cock my fist for a fight. And I kicked someone's ass. But I listened intently to the conversations. Uh-oh, is it time? And slowly, I started to understand that the word could not hurt me anymore, and that if others were feeling prideful, calling themselves queer, then it was time for me to open my mind to the word. The night before Cheryl died, the LGBT community held a candlelight vigil for her outside the hospital, singing and praying for her. It was one of the most beautiful displays of love to see the influence she had over people from every age group. Cheryl was the DC LGBT community hero. She was my hero. Fast forward to 2012, I came upon the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce. It was time to come all the way out professionally. As I took steps to put myself out there and add it was LGBT-owned, I could feel her spirit nudging me forward. Well, probably kicking my ass for it. It was also time to be the voice to make a difference for not just the LGBT community, but for diversity as a whole. It was no longer okay that we are marginalized. It is no longer acceptable that people in power turn a blind eye to toxic workplaces and bullying. And it is no longer tolerable to be silent about gender discrimination. Our LGBT business community needs to be prospered and valued honored for the value we bring. I know in the depths of my heart I would not be standing here tonight as a leader in the LGBT community without the influence of her. I know Cheryl's memory tonight, I honor Cheryl's memory tonight, and I know that the DC LGBT community is healthier and more respected because of Cheryl's devotion to making a difference. She was fearless. She was relentless with the most loving and biggest heart I know, and I love you.
For that one, you know, what do we say? We're here. Right. We're queer. Get used to it. Yes. One more time. We're here. We're queer. Get used to it. All right. So now is the time of the evening where we're going to have our wild card. So those of you who don't watch, you can immediately go to the bathroom as if somebody just did. And here we go.
Thank you. I'm going to call forward to draw the one of the 7 brave people who stepped up. Can we have a round of applause just for the folks of volunteers? One of those wonderful souls is going to be our storyteller of surprise. I'm going to call forward Lewis Hughes, one of our wonderful Elders Day committee all along and is a wonderful historian for our community. Can you please pull the name? got? It's Evelyn Nicholson. Evelyn! So Evelyn needs to come back to what our green room / landing of the stairway back here with me to prepare a little bit while we invite our choir to do their next number. So Evelyn, will you please come back with me?
We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gay and lesbian people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gay and lesbian people, and we are singing, singing for our lives.
We have one more song that we would like to sing for you that's also from our concert. It's from the musical Ragtime. It's never more appropriate than today and for what we do and for what all of you do. Make them hear you.
Go out and tell our story. Let it echo far and wide. Make them hear you. Make them hear you.
How justice was our battle, and how justice was denied. Make them hear you. Make them hear you. And say to those who blame us for the way we chose to fight, that sometimes there are battles which are more than black or white. And I could not put down my sword when justice was my right. Make them hear you.
Make them hear you.
Go out and tell our story.
again, another hand for our new wave singer. Thank you for that Holly Near flashback and May Christensen, y'all, and Little Toby, Rachel Reagan, maybe some of you might remember. Our next storyteller is Ella Van Michael Millhouse, holds a master's in pastoral counseling and spiritual care with a focus in faith and social justice from Loyola University. Currently pursuing a Master of Divinity from Chicago Theological Seminary. I guess you can never be too blessed, doubly blessed here. Van Michael Millhouse is a practicing healer, a co-creator of Element of Hope. Element of Hope is a living organism which affirms, guides, confirms, empowers, and advocates for and with those who find themselves unjustly impacted by power structures with full spiritual applications. Element of Hope's recent works, second-year resident griot cultivator with Baltimore Conversation, working towards intervention and prevention of HIV/AIDS within the trans men communities with Be Sure, as well as facilitating faith spaces, organizations of reconciliation process through the Faith Committee of Baltimore, Pride, Unity Fellowship of Columbia, and St. Matthew's Lead Ministry. Please welcome Michael Millhouse, and tonight he will be honoring Mr. Ross Avery Walker.
Ross Avery Walker. I met Ross Avery Walker in 2011 at a focus group, and I thought to myself, my goodness, there's someone like me. There's a trans man who is like me, but older than me. They really exist, that's real? You know, so once we got to know each other, a year later I was writing for Out Loud newspaper, and I said, you know, your story needs to be shared. I've not met anyone of this age from Baltimore who identifies this way, at least now, because that's the new terminology. But Ross was born in 1962, so he was born before all of these labels and all this stuff that we have now. So I really wanted to know how did you do it? And one of the remarkable stories I remember he told me was, he said, you know, I sat across from the table with my granddad and I said, I'm a boy. And I said, you're still sitting here with me? And he said, I did. I said, well, what did your granddad say? He said, okay. So to me, that told me something about Ross, that he's bold, he's resilient, and he knows who he is. Ross is very quiet, a man of few words, but a force to be reckoned with. In 2012, I learned that he actually remembers the day that Martin Luther King was killed. I said, what did that feel like? And so he described what it felt like in the city of Baltimore at that time. He also told me what it was like to be in queer Baltimore in the early 80s, late 70s. I call that on the other side of the wall. You know, he's celebrating our 50 years. There's another side of the wall. He said, you know, I lost a lot of friends to what now we call HIV/AIDS. Then it was grid. I lost a lot of friends to that, and I was scared. We were all scared, but we all come together. We took care of one another during that time. He told me a time when he was sitting on the steps, and then I think someone in the room said, "What you doing down there with those people?" They're weird, they're different. But he saw his community early on, and was not ashamed to sit with who he found family with. I've watched this man quietly walk with his grandmother, who raised him through her life, absorb her wisdom until she passed on. He put his life on hold to make sure that she, as an elder, was taken care of and moved on gracefully. I watched him work at a prestigious institution and face discrimination, misgendering. I've watched him even watch others who have health insurance get the medical needs met, but he couldn't. And he had to fight quietly. He didn't make a bunch of noise, he just took the proper channels that were set in place for him to get what it is that he needed. And this past October, I had the opportunity to watch Ross receive his surgery that he needed to affirm fully his gender and to be comfortable more in his body. And I've never seen a person glow even more. It's been a privilege to watch this happen, this transformation, because he lived before the name. He's living during the name in policy. He's showing me what it's like to walk through the dark ages, because they may be here again, who knows? So he holds the keys to what it's like to really walk in who you are against all things. This man is a man of faith. Apostolic, that is, he lets me know. That's a heavy load to carry. And he does not mind going to different churches. He makes time for folks. So I want to stand here today and say thank you, Ross, for praying for my wife and walking with me and my family. Thank you for all the church communities that you've been a part of and still a part of. And he always called me every once in a while and said, what are we doing next? You know? And I thank you for showing me that we've been here and that we count. And even in the faith of us having a youth-driven culture, gets better later. All right. Stand here tonight and please give Ross Raw Dog Avery Walker a hand.
Thank you so much. We're doing audibles. So our next wild card storyteller, come forward. Evelyn? Evelyn? Come, Evelyn. Come on. We want to hear the story. Evelyn, Evelyn, Evelyn.
Hello, everybody. First, I want to talk about, I'm not sure if he was LGBT or not. Mike, Evelyn. But he taught me, you know, people are people. I don't care what your gender or anything is. This man's name is John Bell. I met him when I lived in Philadelphia. And Mr. Bell is an activist. He took medication he put medication in the prison system. You know, he taught me to be true to myself, who I am, and taught me that I could stand up and help fight for those that couldn't speak out for themselves. You know, he was really an amazing person. When I went to Philadelphia, I was one of those people hiding, you know, ashamed of my status, who I am. You know, I thought that nobody would care about me. And he just took me by my hand and showed me I meant something. I was somebody. And that I could do anything I put my mind to. And we got into ACT UP, so I learned how to be an activist too, as well as an advocate. No longer have him here, but they do have a clinic named after him in Philadelphia. And I'd just like for y'all to say it.
Thank you for your courage and for sharing this story. It's not easy to just come up in front of a room full of people and be open like that. Thank you so much for sharing that.
one more wild card.
Ah, yeah, very nice. We have one more wild card.
So it's Dakota Hoffman.
Thank you. You heard that. It's Dakota Hoffman.
I'm Dakota, as she said. I could not go through this evening without honoring some elders of mine who are past and still here. I came out in 1978 when I was 13. And I went to the Gay Community Center here in Baltimore for the first time, and that's where it started. I got the bug. I got the bug to be a part of the community. I got the bug that the community would take care of me, even though there were people out there who would say horrible things about me, who beat me up in school, who called me names. Enough about me. I want to say the names of these elders. Harvey Lee Hoffman, who was my lover and died in 1991 when he had 4 T cells left. Arthur Stutzman, who worked for Hero as the director of education for many, many years after he found out he not only had AIDS, but he not only had HIV, but he had AIDS. And he died in my home because there was no one else to take care of him. I honor Lewis Hughes, who is still here. I honor the Duchess, Carlton Smith. I honor Jackie Randall, one of the motorcycle riding lesbians, who at any beck and call said, somebody mess with you, call me, I got it. And I also give it out to Louise Kelly.
Woo woo!
Louise Kelly, who helped me grow up and become a man. She was my lesbian mother. And I also want to thank you, Glenda Ryder. Glenda Ryder, who was tough love, but let me know the value of love.
I love you, brother.
You too. Thank you.
And in that, I want to lift up Chris Mason, who's an artist in our community, who, like so many, were gone too soon. You did mention someone who we affectionately refer to as the Duchess, who seems to go to every event, everywhere you go, is involved in so much, is the definition of resilience, of persistence, of good humor, and I think of enjoying a life well lived. Thank you so much for doing that. I see that in you, and I appreciate that. It's my pleasure now to bring to the stage our beloved Dak. I'm sorry.
My bad.
Yes.
So we are going to.
We are, okay. I'm going to do that later. We are now going to hear from someone else who I'm sure is also a beloved. Rick Newton Treadway, also known as Hooker, has been a community activist and event producer for over 35 years. He's president of Hooker and Boys, who produced the massive annual 12 Days of Christmas fundraiser, which celebrated its 20th anniversary last year. He was Maryland Mr. Drummer in 1999. Mr. Maryland Leather in 2009, the founder and continuing producer of the Mid-Atlantic Leather Women and Mid-Atlantic Leather Women Boot Black, Baltimore King and Queen of Pride contests, and he frequently serves as the judge for local, regional, and international contests. Hooker serves on several nonprofit boards, including the Carter Johnson Leather Library and Collection in Hagertown Post. Tonight, he's chosen to honor Charles Chuck Leo Bowers.
wild card choice a few years ago from a friend. It's really cool to look around the room and see people that influenced my life so early on. Silas, thank you for everything, my friend. Mr. Bowers, a lot can be said about Chuck. I've always been blessed to call him friend. I couldn't tell you the first time we met, but I know that he knew that I wasn't old enough to be in his bar. And all he did was look at me and say, behave yourself. Things were different then. You know, my mama raised me right. You know, you don't get in trouble unless you get caught. And I didn't get in a lot of trouble. Mr. Bowers couldn't be with us this afternoon because the senior that he is taking care of his big sister who's not doing well. We send our prayers and hopes to her and the family. But Mr. B, aside from owning the hippo and all that, I don't care what was going on, whether it was dealing with whatever the crisis was for a week being a gun gay boy, you know, and he had that same look that my mother could give me across the room of like, it's like, yeah, I guess I shouldn't be doing that. And day or night, he's one of these people that when he says, if you need me, I'm there. And I can't remember a time, whether he agreed with what I was doing or what I was talking about or what I was involved with, he never turned his back on me, no matter what. And those individuals are few far in between because we're really quick to turn our back on someone because we don't agree with what they're going through. Or we might not totally understand it. We might think we can comprehend it, but we always don't. Chuck doesn't like accolades. When he got the email that this was happening and I had chose him, my phone rang, and it was like, boy, I'm going to beat your ass. And I was like, yes, sir. Because I knew what the call was about, you know. And he's like, you know, I said, yes, sir, I know. You know, you don't do what you do. You haven't done what you've done over the last 40 years for the awards, for the accolades, for the praise. I know that, I don't know where I would be 41 years later coming into this community if it wasn't for people like Chuck. And his door was always open. He's seen me through a lot. I proposed to my husband in his bar, you know, and when I said I wanted to do it, he said, what do you need? I told him what I needed. We really got tracked. 1983, I was running for Miss Go West down on Park Avenue. And, you know, after I won, you know, he saw me in the street. We didn't have cell phones and all that kind of stuff. And he was like, congratulations. And that year was the first real, Jack and Walter from the gallery had planned this big, huge benefit at the Hippo. So my first time getting to perform there, you know, as a little gay boy, and not old enough to be in the bar, I can admit that now. And, you know, his door was always open. His door is always open, you know. You're doing a benefit for what? Sure. So 20, soon to be 21 years ago, I was Mr. Maryland drummer, and we had to do a benefit. So Woody and Tim and all of us, we pulled our sources, went into his office, and what do you want? Okay. Got a favor. Need to do a show. Can we do a show? Sure. What are you going to call it? I don't know. When do you want to do it? According to the calendar, he said, the first annual 12 Days of Christmas. Woody and I sat there and said, first annual, we're doing this once, sir, and we're done.
Right.
Mr. Newton, because I wasn't Newton Treadway then, and Mr. Barnes, I know both of you. First annual. So here the event was named. And, you know, it was to remember that thing. I tell the story every year at 12 days, but it was him right then and there just saying, first annual, here you go, it's going to be, you know, here are my rules, you know, to play by the rules, you know. Yes, the first year I got called to his office, which that was a big thing. If you got called to his office, you knew you were in trouble. In my little gay boy excitement, that I got to actually not only be in a show at the Hippo, which had already happened, but I got to have my show at the Hippo. I used the F-bomb 47 times according to the calculations of what he had inside of him, in front of him. And he said, okay, for the next, however this is going to be, we don't do that, right? And I'm like, yes, sir, I promise I won't go anymore on the bike. And I hadn't. I'm blessed. Of course, we all know that Hippo is now a CVS. And, you know, I got engaged to my husband right there by the Band-Aids. I haven't been in there. My husband's been in there. I still can't go in there. You know, that's where this little gay boy cut his teeth with Mary's and Leon's and all the rest of our neighborhood. You know, and I know when AIDS Action Baltimore started, I know when the clinic started, Mr. Bowers was just one of those people that things would show up. You know, I know when we were doing things at the center, you know, and we needed, and I made a phone call, and he's like, what do you need? I said, we need help doing this, and he sent us a check. And it was like, thank you. And he said, you know my role. Yes, sir, I know your role. Thank you, and just, that was enough, move on. But I felt a need to say today that if it wasn't for Mr. Bowers and many people in this room, as well as Chase Brexton, I don't know if I would be standing here today. So to Chase Brexton, for the Gay Men's Health Clinic, as I first remember it, thank you. And to Mr. Bowers, thank you for teaching me that you can do things, and the word thank you is enough. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I remember the Hippo. That's when I got introduced to speaker dancing. You know, back when they had big speakers and you could actually, you know, on. So thank you for that memory. Next up will be artists, community creative, James Mayhew, and he's going to speak briefly about the inspiration for the 2019 banner, which will be revealed.
Shall we reveal first?
Yeah, reveal it, please.
Ready?
Yes.
I also feel that I've arrived now that Mary Washington has introduced me. This is based on Gilbert Baker's original pride flag that was flown in San Francisco in 1978. And each stripe has a different meaning, but I'm also a little bit nervous, so I cannot remember all of them right now. But I am really honored to be able to make this. I love Elders, I love this event. I've only missed 1 year so far, and I'm so happy to be here. And everybody who comes up and pins something,
So Carlton's going to talk about pinning the banner, but why don't you talk about this part down here?
So everybody who comes up and honors somebody by putting a pin up here will also receive one of these flowers, which are kind of a cross between a pansy and a forget-me-not. So it's a forget-me-not pansy. So that's it, and I'll be up here to give them to you.
Thank you, James.
Folks asked if we could turn it so the choir could see too, so I'm going to just do that for the room.
Ooh, can't wait to pick a dancer. So you heard the really cool stuff I just said about our dear friend Carlton. What he's going to do, he's our pin master for the evening, and he's going to introduce our pinning ceremony for the elders we honor. And both those of us who are here, yeah, you're the only one, with us today, and those with us in spirit.
Yes.
All right.
All right. Yeah. That's right. I'm so glad, and thank you for so many of you coming out tonight and honoring our elders. So give yourselves a round of applause. Yeah. much love. It is my honor as Pen Master to preside over the final and most special part of the evening, the pinning ceremony. And at this time, I'd like to invite all the storytellers and the honorees to come to the front of the room, this way. And Evelyn and Victoria, come on through. Woo-hoo. This is now your Price is Right. It's mine? Okay. So don't pin yet. The storytellers and the elder honorees, please face one another and get your pins ready. Yes, ready. And we're going to do the pinning all together as a group. Are we all grouped up? Oh, okay, okay, that works too. We'll work it out. If the person you honor tonight could not be with us, we would like you to symbolically place a pin on them on the beautiful Elder Day banner, as you see up front. The tradition of the formal pinning of the ceremony has been a part of our National Honors LGBT Elders Day ceremony since it started in 2016. Everybody got themselves together? Are you couples? Yeah. Yes. The pin carries the Elders Day logo of the rainbow sun. Take a look at the logo. Is the rainbow sun rising or setting? The answer is yes. The sun rises and the sun sets. And the sun will rise again. A generation of LGBT leaders rise, strides boldly towards liberation, faces challenges, fights oppression, and wins the crucial victories. Yes. Victories. Felt like a Evita moment. So proud. As the generation fulfilled the works, they came to a new generation to pick up the battle and carry out the movement forward. As this pin to be symbol of the power of community, a reminder of your rich legacy, and a symbol of your strong link in an unbroken chain of chain makers. All right now, you are the chain makers. And now, storytellers, please get ready to pin your honorees when I give you the word. Ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Now, storytellers, please get ready to pin your honorees when I give you the word. Oh, the word is pin. All right. Thank you so much. Storytellers and honorees, give yourself a round of applause. Yes. That's what I'm talking about. Feel the energy, yes. For all of you who brought a special night, you may be seated. Okay. this is where the boy, you come in.
I love this because, again, just capturing that time, I feel like I'm 18 and I'm trying to figure it going into a community center. It really, really reflects the period. I know it's not easy to produce something that looks like it was made 40 or 50 years ago. It's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. As we conclude this evening, I have a request for you. I'd like each of you to take a pin with you. We invite you to do one of two things with it. Option one is to wear the pin and use it to talk about our elders with people that you meet. Tell them about how what our lives are like today as LGBTQ people, and that we would not be here without the efforts and the sacrifice of our elders. Or two, if you have an elder in your life that is important to you, take this pin and give it to them. Tell them that they have made a difference in your life. Tell them that they are special and that they can wear it with pride. If your elder is no longer here with us, we invite you to place a pin to honor their spirit on this banner. So again, everyone, thank you so much. Thank you, Chase Brexton, for being our community, for reminding us of who we are. We take this, our action going forward is to always make sure that there is health care, affordable health care for members of our community, and that we continue to be the ones that dictate and support and the voices of people who are unheard in our communities. Thank you so much for this evening, and let's continue to enjoy each other's lives and company. Thank you.